So I work for Avon Wildlife Trust. We're based in Bristol, but we cover North Somerset, sort of Bath area, up through Bristol and over to Weston, and then up as far as like South Gloss, Charfield area. You might know us because we've got a lot of nature reserves, got over 30 nature reserves. We've also got the Folly Farm Centre, which is a lovely education centre which has residential and day visits. Usually I'd be there actually at this time of year teaching hundreds of kids all about nature, sustainability, curriculum linked outdoor learning activities, teamwork, resilience building, all that kind of brilliant stuff. But at the moment our focus is a bit more on how we can support schools to bring children back safely and support their well-being and curriculum topics through outdoor learning. We also do support schools who want to run nature clubs. So if any of you want to kind of become a wildlife watch nature club, we might be able to help you out with that, particularly if you live in North Somerset. If you don't live in North Somerset, Somerset Wildlife Trust cover that area, and they are fantastic and they do a lot of similar activities to us. So I guess first I just wanted to acknowledge that lockdown has been kind of really quite a sort of strange time, and it's really helped a lot of people appreciate nature a lot more than they did before. It's kind of it's been like a solace, it's helped give people joy, and it's kind of helped a lot of people realise that life kind of does go on, kind of life runs in cycles. And I think that message is really important for children who don't have the kind of emotional maturity to realise that this kind of these strange and uncertain times aren't going to last forever. So the familiarity of the kind of changing seasons and the sort of joy of seeing the swallows arrive from Africa, or I'll show you this little video. This is my friend who saw a hedgehog in her garden in Somerset. Can you hear that? Can you hear those little snuffles? These are two hedgehogs, and you know, you just don't normally notice that kind of activity because everyone's at school or work or busy, and they're doing, I think it's a kind of aggressive they're kind of like vying for territory. So one of them is kind of going and trying to sort of scare the other one off, and there's just all this kind of amazing interaction with nature. So I just wanted to briefly, just to get you all talking, I wanted to know if anyone would share a kind of lovely lockdown nature story, whether there's anything that has given you kind of comfort or joy from nature in lockdown. Or if you can't think of one for you, maybe you can think of one for the students that you teach.
We did see a mother duck with her ducklings walking through the estate down to a nearby pond. They'd gone from one area down to another. We tracked them down in the evening to see where they'd moved to.
Oh, lovely. Who else? Anna, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I had one that we walk the dog near where we live, and my children got very excited one day when they found all the grasshoppers, and they spent ages looking at the grasshoppers, trying to catch them, and it was really lovely.
Anyone else?
One of our children from our school took some lovely photographs of the birds on his bird table feeding, woodpeckers and all sorts, so it was nice to see.
Lovely. Yeah, it's been a real kind of silver lining, I think, for a lot of people. And as a charity that focuses on connecting people with nature, we've been really heartened by how much people have been valuing nature. I'm going to switch the slide. I'm not going to focus on this too long because it's a bit depressing and we haven't got much time. But just to say that nature is in trouble. Species and habitats are in big decline, as is our connection with nature. So there's a phrase that was coined by a person called Richard Louv in 2005, which is called nature deficit disorder. It's not meant to be kind of a medical condition, but this is how he describes it. Among the reasons for human disconnection from the natural world, the proliferation of electronic communication, poor urban planning, disappearing open space, increased street traffic, diminished importance of the natural world in education, and parents' fear magnified by the news and entertainment media. Increasing body of evidence suggests that nature deficit disorder contributes to a diminished use of the senses, attention difficulties, conditions of obesity, higher rates of emotional and physical illnesses. So connecting children with nature is really important, not just for kind of nature's sake, but for their sake. And we feel that schools have got a really vital role to play for this. And I imagine you probably do too if you're on this training. Particularly because the most affluent or the least affluent 10% of people in the UK have got 10 times less access to green space that they can walk to than the richest 10%. And that's not just in urban areas. So even in rural areas, like I know a lot of you are in, there are still big problems with children having access to safe natural environments that they can play. So now is time for you to do some choosing. So the activities that I did for this week are linked to a lot of different topics in the curriculum, as well as kind of well-being and just general classroom engagement. So I can talk about whichever ones you want. Probably got time to talk about sort of 4. So would anyone like to nominate a topic that they're particularly interested in finding out more about?
Geography and history, please.
Yeah, let's do that one first then. All right. So one of my favourite geography links is to do with bird migration. So there are some. This image here shows some of the major migratory bird pathways. And so birds that are arriving into the UK in spring, such as swallows, have come from Africa. In the winter, you've got some things like swans that are coming all the way from the Arctic Circle. You've got other birds that are flying in from Asia. You've got some that are coming over from the Americas. So it's a really brilliant hook for helping students to improve their locational knowledge of land masses and countries. When you're moving kind of further up through school, you can introduce more complexity into this. So you can start to think about how the birds are migrating, and you can think about the major features that they need. So you're talking about the Great Lakes. You're talking about the kind of biomes that they're moving through. So how do they manage to get across the Sahara, for example? You can start to introduce the challenges that poses, and then the importance of things like oases of water. You can also then link in interesting topics around habitat loss, deforestation, and human activities like that. So it's a really kind of flexible activity that works across Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. Let me just get up my next slide. Oh yeah, another kind of, so how I would do this probably is I would get a map of the world, and I would get the students to do a little bit of research on a bird or give them a fact file, and then get them to mark on where the bird's gone from and to, and then build up from there. A really other nice kind of one that helps to teach them about mapping and also about compass points and orientation. Sorry, there's this. Just going to close my window. There's someone, I think they've just crashed their car outside. Yeah, in the activity pack for this week, there's an activity about mapping your school grounds. So you can give kids either a base map of your school or just a satellite image or something like that. And then you can point on the map, and this is a good one to do isolated because they can do it individually. Point on the map where you want them to go to. They have to navigate their way there, and then draw something on the ground or create a kind of piece of art or something using natural materials. And then they have to try and navigate another person, a partner, to that point, either by directing them, like 5 steps forward, 2 steps left, or you could introduce some orienteering, so the kind of points of the compass. So you can move 10 steps north, 3 steps east, something like that. Another nice geography one. And actually, no, sorry, this is more history as well. And actually, the bird migration one works really well with history because you can talk about changing land use. This image I'm showing is from, it's a website called maps.bristol.gov.uk, catchy, and it's absolutely amazing. And they've got it, this is Taunton that I've got up on the screen, and it's quite small, but the top image is Taunton how it is now. And then the bottom image, you could kind of slide like this little slider across, and it shows you an image of Taunton from, I think it's the 18th century, something like that. So you can use that kind of resource to base a topic around what was the school like back then, and how have the habitats changed then? What impact has that had on humans and on wildlife? If you don't have, you know, that could be printed out and used outside, but something that's really simple to do outside is if you've got a mature tree in your grounds, say that's over 100 years old, an activity I really love doing is something called what has this tree seen? So you kind of put yourself in the mind of the tree, and you think, okay, what would this tree be able to see 100 years ago from this spot? What would it be able to hear? What would it be able to smell? Like, who would be sitting underneath this tree in this shade? It's just a really nice kind of like hook for getting young people to think about local history. That was a bit of a blurb. Right, that's geography and history. Has anyone got any thoughts or any questions on any of that?
What was the name of the map website again, please?
It's maps.bristol.gov.uk.
Thank you.
And then there's I think you have to click on an option to show Somerset, because it will focus in on Bristol to start with.
Okay, cool.
Okay. All right. Next topic. What would you like next?
I quite like art and design for younger children, perception.
Oh, great. Okay, lovely. So art and design kind of outside. I mean, are you familiar with the kind of nature in art, Andy Goldsworthy sort of stuff? You come across that before?
No.
No, okay. So look up Andy Goldsworthy. So he's the most famous artist who creates art using purely natural materials, and
Okay.
he's an incredible inspiration for nature in art. So what we do usually is we just have laminated A3 sheets of some of his art that he does. I didn't put any up on here, but it's absolutely brilliant.
Okay.
So when you're thinking about kind of nature art, I guess you just really need to think about what your school grounds is like. So if it's going to be, if you haven't got much natural material, you might want to think
We've
about.
got a fairly large playing field with, you know, mature trees at the back. So.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah. Okay. And have you got like lots of kind of wildflowers and sort of falling leaves and sticks and all that kind of thing?
Yes. Wildflowers not so much, but yes.
Yeah.
There
Okay.
are things that we could find and use, yeah.
So there's I find that when you're trying to do kind of natural art with kids, for the really little ones, it's quite nice to give them, if you give them like a blob of clay on some kind of bit of wood or just on a clipboard or something, and then they can go off each with their own little bag or something, or actually an egg box is really nice with like 6 compartments. Get them to collect bits and bobs, and then they can stick them into the clay, and you can introduce whatever you want with it. You know, it could be a face, or you could start to get them to think about, if you wanted to introduce some math, you could get them to think about symmetry, sort of whether they could have a line of symmetry in their art. It's also quite nice to think about hanging objects, because that's really fun, particularly for kids that are a bit unsure about creating like 2-dimensional art. So that's really, really fun. And another one that I love actually is making clay faces on trees. Every kid loves making clay faces on trees. So just a blob of clay on, they get them to get some berries and some sticks, and they can just make a face out of it.
Okay.
To link to kind of more like design related things, it's also quite, have you ever made seed bombs, any of you?
No.
Oh, I love seed bombs. The seed bombs basically like clay, wildflower seed and soil, and you just smudge it all together into a ball, and then the idea is that you can throw it somewhere that needs more wildflowers.
Okay.
It's a really good thing to do.
It gets very, very messy.
Yeah, it's very messy. It's very messy. And I would refer you to Daniel's video from a couple of weeks ago on how to do COVID hygiene and have kind of outdoor cleaning stations. It's very messy. But what I was going to say is you can make it a lot more creative by getting the seed bombs to be shaped into different things. So they could be shaped like a heart or a star or a bird. And you can have a competition for what's the most kind of creative seed bomb.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
If you've got clay left over from faces on trees and you want to make easy bowls, you can flatten out the clay, put it in a bowl, and then pick leaves and put an indent of the leaf on clay. And that makes these really pretty bowls as well, which I only discovered 2 weeks ago when we were doing art activities at Kilve with some kids, and someone showed it me. And even I can make a pretty bowl, which I thought was not something I would ever be able to do. But if you want a really easy art activity with leaves, if you've got spare clay, I think the faces on trees is better. But I think if you want a secondary activity with clay, I'd make a pitch for that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, whilst we're on the topic of leaves, leaf bashing is really fun. So you get a bit of cloth, you put, kids can collect leaves or flowers, and then they put the cloth over the other side, so the leaves in the middle, and then you hit it with a hammer or a bit of wood, and you basically bash out the pigment. And so when you open it up again, you take off the leaf, and you've got a beautiful kind of colourful imprint of the leaf. And then you can make things like we've made bunting before out of everybody's leaf bashings.
Yeah, okay.
Right, we've probably got space for 1, maybe 2 more topics. Is there anything else anyone would like to know about?
I'd like to know English.
Was that English?
Yes, please.
Sure. What where do you teach?
And Stoke St Michael's School.
Okay.
And
more Key Stage 1 or Key Stage 2?
I'm going to be in Key Stage 1 from September.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So, no problem. My lovely hyperlinks that Dan suggested I do are not working, so I'm going to just scroll through.
Sorry.
It's honestly, just can't get the staff, can you? So for early years in Key Stage 1, being outside is a really good way of engaging your more like reluctant writers, particularly children that are reluctant to start making marks. And this will be familiar with kind of early years practitioners, that if you get them to kind of make marks on like big surfaces, you know, with sticks or kind of like handprints of mud on bits of paper on the ground, or these top right image there is just some bits of wood, and we've got paint brushes with just kind of mud that they can start they can start doing mark making. So early mark making, and also kind of getting children to start confidence writing letters, can be really good, and can link to nature art actually, because you can get them to make letters and then make words out of sticks or stones or petals or what else you've got. Another one that I really love is it's kind of a way of getting children to write poetry without them realizing that they're writing poetry. So you get them to work in groups of say 4, and they sit kind of, if you've got a tree, it's really good, or it can be anything, but imagine it's a tree. You get them all to sit in different positions. So one of them is sitting like underneath the tree, looking up. One of them's looking at the tree from a distance. One is got their nose really, really close to the tree so they can see the bark. And then you get them to just write like 2 or 3 descriptive words. And then they get together and they just shuffle around their pieces of paper to an order that they like. You don't call it a poem at this point, you just say it's an order that they like. And then they can read it out. And then you tell them that they've basically created a poem. And it's a really lovely way of getting children to be more free and more creative with their writing, and not be so fixated on doing the right thing or writing their poem in the right kind of way. I think that's probably my main one. I guess just to say that generally a lot of people find that children that are reluctant at speaking or writing or any kind of creative thing like that, they can get a lot of inspiration by being outside. So some of the students that we've done school visits with, the teachers say to us like, oh, that's the most that they've ever talked in the whole year I've known them, because they've just got so much more stimulation, or kind of a different type of stimulation than they might have in the classroom. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
The mark making one, just for interest, I suppose that's discussed in a book called Dirty Teaching by Juliet Robertson. But if you don't, which is an amazing book, but she also does a blog, and the mark making is free in the blog as well. If you she goes under the Twitter name of Creative Star. So I think if you do a Google search, it will come up with the mark making and other English ideas.
She's absolutely amazing, Juliet Robertson. I would highly recommend looking her up. And also there's an organisation called Learning Through Landscapes. They're usually quite protective over their resources, but they've made a lot of them free during lockdown, and they've got really lovely lesson plans, a lot of early years in Key Stage 1 lesson plans that are all about outdoor and nature-based learning. So I would look them up. Daniel, how are we doing? Have we got room for one more or not?
Should we try and do, unless people have got questions, we could do one more. Happy to do whatever you would like. Or I could tell you a joke.
I'd like to hear about the well-being and emotional awareness, although I'd love to hear your joke too.
I'm glad you said that, because I love talking about well-being with nature. So I'm just going to play you a little. Could you hear the hedgehog clip that I played before?
Not very clearly.
Not really.
Okay, all right, maybe I won't play this then. This is a quote from a girl talking about what nature means to her, and I think it's quite powerful, but I don't think it's going to work, so let's not do that. So we do quite a few different nature mindfulness activities. I'm going to stop presenting a minute so I can just show you one of them. So what we always do when we take kids outside is we always do something which is called a grounding activity. And it's just a way of kind of, it's like mindfulness that I'm sure some of you will have done with your children. We always do it because it kind of helps if children are moving into a new environment, particularly the outdoor environment where there aren't any kind of walls and everything's a bit different. It can be a really good way of kind of like resetting and refocusing them. So you can do this if you like. I always do this with the kids. I never watch them because I think they engage more if you are fully immersed in it too. So basically you say, okay, we're going to stand in a circle. If you think they're going to mess around and won't keep their eyes closed, you can get them to face out of the circle so they can't see each other. And you just say something like, some people find that being out in nature is a really good way of chilling out and relaxing. So we're just going to do a little exercise to help you chill out. And then you say, so we're going to close our eyes, and in silence, I'd like you to take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. I'd like you to draw your attention to the sounds you can hear. Try and not focus on the sounds of traffic or people, but try and focus in on the sound of the birds, the sound of the leaves rustling through the trees. Keep on taking deep breaths in and out. Now I'd like you to turn your attention to what you can feel. Maybe you can feel the sun on your face or the wind just tickling the back of your neck. I want you to feel the weight of your feet on the earth. And you can, if they're sitting down, I might say, and I invite you to just run your hands through the grass. Finally, I'd like you to have a big stretch. Take a deep breath in and open your eyes. And just something like that makes quite a difference to how they engage with the lesson. An alternative is a fist of sound. So you do the same thing, get them to close their eyes and put a fist up. And every time they hear a different bird song, get them to put a finger out like that. And then afterwards, you can have a nice discussion about what birds they heard, what sounds they heard, where they might have come from. So I really love that one. There's also one called Magic Spots, which I think would work quite well in your school, but only if you've got quite a bit of space. Which is where you basically get a kid to sit on their own somewhere that they choose for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And you don't give them anything to do at all. And you make the point to them that if they feel bored, it isn't necessarily a negative thing, that it's important to just let our mind just relax and calm and not necessarily have anything to do. And you can just get them to sit there and observe the nature that they see around them and then feedback on what they discovered. I love those activities. There's another one that I wanted to, can you hear the ice cream van? I don't know why he bothers, honestly. I haven't seen anyone get an ice cream for about a year from that man. The other one I wanted to tell you about is emotional awareness. So we've been doing a lot of work developing this programme. So the idea is that nature isn't judgmental, so it doesn't ask you for anything. It gives its gifts to you freely. So we try and show children that you can express any emotion you want in nature. You know, you can scream, you can shout, you can cry, you can smash sticks. Nature's not going to tell you off. It's not going to tell you that you've done anything wrong, or you shouldn't be feeling that way. It will still be there. So life goes on, and so will you. And you know, the flowers will still come out, and the birds will still sing. And nothing that you're doing is wrong. It's all kind of natural. So it's this kind of concept that all the emotions, fear, anger, sadness, and joy that we feel are they're shared with a lot of the animal kingdom as well. We are part of nature, and these are natural emotions. None of them are more right or wrong than the other. And how we kind of develop that idea is we get students, at the moment we're mainly doing this with secondary students, but I'd be interested to see how it would work for younger kids. You get them to go out into your school grounds and to select an object that to them represents each of those 4 emotions. And then it's quite ceremonial, really. You sort of stand around this cross and you get them to put in the objects that represent these different emotions, and you invite them, you don't force them, but you invite them to talk about why they picked that object. So it's a way of getting children to articulate what emotions feel like when they struggle. So it might be that there's a thorn, and it makes you think of anger, because, you know, when I'm hurt, I feel angry, I feel spiky. Or joy might be kind of a bright colour, because I feel happy and sort of warm and excited, and that kind of thing. So I'd actually be quite interested if anybody is interested in developing that idea further in their setting. It's a piece of work that we're doing at the moment. So I'm kind of sharing something that's not completely formed, but it's worked well with adults and with Key Stage 3 students that we've done it with so far. Has anyone got any reflections or any questions on the sort of well-being and emotional awareness side of things?
I really like that square thing, and I think with everybody coming out of lockdown and all the health and well-being, I think things like that are just exactly what we need to try and get them to connect more with the outdoors, and also with their peers, and with all the horrible feelings they might be feeling based on suddenly being in this uncontrollable environment. So I really like that. I think that was great.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that there's a need for there's going to have to be a lot of work to do to help children kind of cope with the trauma that they've been through. Great. Okay. Daniel's going to share this presentation. So all the other bits that we haven't had time to cover, you can. That's right, isn't it, Daniel? They can look at it another time.
Yeah, I can send it out to everyone who signed up for the training if that's of use. Yeah, that would be brilliant if you're happy for me to do that.
That's totally fine with me. So I guess just to say that if anybody's interested in once lockdown is over, having a school visit at Folly Farm Centre, we'd love to have you. We do residential and day visits, and we've completely adapted our delivery model in light of COVID. So we've got good sort of social distancing, hygiene procedures and everything in place. And we're also offering to come in and do teacher training for schools or for MATs, either face-to-face or online. Also, if you want to get some wildflowers, we've got a Grow Wilder is kind of it's one of our sites, and it sells locally grown organic wildflowers, vegetables and herbs, and they're perfect kind of little plug sizes to put into school gardens. And the money that raises goes directly to support Avon Wildlife Trust. So yeah, if anybody wants to discuss any of that, these are my contact